Well, it is a hot one here, and you're back for another exciting episode of the Jade Mechanic Podcast. I'm sitting here with a relatively new friend of mine. Again, TikTok, right? I love TikTok. TikTok has been so good for. I think TikTok is vital for this industry, and if anything, nothing else has been vital for this podcast and getting it out there. So, Mr. Justin Cole, otherwise known as Ford or Ford
Ford Tech J. Cole.
Ford Tech J. Cole on TikTok. I'm sorry, the heat has messed my brain up yesterday. Is with me tonight. So how are you, Justin?
I'm good, man. Good. I'm trying to bear the heat as well. I just came from outside actually working, so sitting in the AC now.
And you said it's like over 100 where you are with the
heat. With the humidity, yeah, it's like 103, 104 up here in Michigan. So yeah, it's brutal right now.
Now, what part of Michigan are you in?
I am in Central, so I'm not far from the capital, which is in Lansing. So we're considered mid-Michigan, but I live in Fowlerville, so that's kind of, as people would say, if you use your hand, we're like right there somewhere. Yeah, use the mitten.
Nice. My Kevin Van Dam, arguably the greatest bass angler ever, right, is from Michigan. So I mean, that's was groundbreaking at the time because for a lot of people traditionally in bass, Michigan's north. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yet he's arguably the most dominant. Well, he is arguably. It's not even an argument. The most dominant angler that's ever been in terms of winning money and tournaments and all that kind of stuff. So, big shout out to the people of Michigan. So, what are you currently like? You say you're Ford Tech. Are you still working for a dealer?
I am. Yep, I am still working for a dealer. It's at actually Lasco Ford in Fenton, which I can say that because I've made TikToks and I've said where I've worked and I've kind of had my shirts and stuff that say it. But yeah, I've been a dealer tech since 2010.
Wow.
So when I first started as a technician. So yeah, it's been a long ride. I'm on year 16 right now. So.
And did you start very green?
I was extremely green. I actually started. I started in 2009 as a sales porter. For a Ford dealership, and then after about a year-ish, I moved into service to be their porter, and then from there I started doing oil changes and light line stuff, and then it just gradually started going from there. And I was green. I was the bottom of the barrel to where I am now. It's you can start from nothing and become something for sure.
So were you a gearhead kind of kid, or?
I was a little bit. I was huge into like the Fast and Furious series. I think most guys my age, even guys that are older than I am, that was our thing, was the Fast and Furious. My dad was mechanical, so whenever our dad was like working on his own stuff, I was always there helping him and holding the flashlight and getting yelled at because it was in the wrong spot. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, growing up, I didn't really wrench on my own stuff per se, but with my dad, I was. And then I just didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And it kind of just blossomed from having an opportunity. And then once you found out that, hey, this is kind of cool. And, I just grew from there. And, 16 years later, here I am.
And I think sometimes people think like on this podcast that it's very anti-dealer, but I should probably preface with saying that if you're listening to me for the first time, a large part of my career background is a dealer tech. You know what I mean? Like I've done it. So it's man, the training that you can get and the experience you can get is, I'll argue to this day, is still so good fundamentally for sometimes for getting your confidence up.
Yeah.
And building, I'll say basic skills, how to be organized, how to be efficient, how to be, do some quality checks, quality control of your work, right? Very independent. You know what I mean? Sometimes, because like the good or bad, some dealers, you can lean on other people, and some dealers you're thrown to the wolves and you sink or swim. So I want people to understand that I'm not anti-dealer, and I don't think you are. I just think that you're kind of like me, where you want to see some things at the dealers improve.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not anti-dealer at all. Obviously, just because I've been there for 16 years, I wouldn't steer somebody away from going independent.
Right.
Or yes, you should go to dealer. No, you shouldn't. I personally can't speak for independents. I've never been to an independent. So if somebody were to ask me, hey, should I start independent or should I start at a dealer? I'm going to say dealer just because I have the experience of where I started and how I grew from a dealer position to
Yeah.
where I am now. I mean, there are opportunities, but when you have the question of, an independent side of things, I don't know how they operate.
Hey, I'm Eric Frank, and this is FS Automotive. We were doing business the old way, so we were leaving a lot on the table. We signed on with TechMetric. We were able to start tracking these things, which we weren't doing before. Within 2 weeks, this thing had paid for itself. It was making me at least twice of what I was making before, within a week. It was a total game changer. If I could do one thing to change the way I was doing business, it would be to start TechMetric and do it sooner. I mean, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for TechMetric.
I don't know what's available for newbie technicians.
And I can tell you from the guy that's stuck his foot in both waters, it's not as consistent on the independent side. So when people ask me, should I start an independent, I always have to kind of, yes, but, and then it has to be a good independent. And then
right.
What is that? Well, that's where you get into the whole can of worms of what's a good dealer. Whereas I find a dealer, if I can kind of, do I want to say it that way? You can warn the people that are starting in a career what to expect at a dealer, right? The things to watch out for, the things that, it can get a little boring, right? You do another recall, another recall, another recall, and you can, do another oil change on another, F-150, and you've done 12 that day. Like, whereas, so I can't say that, yes, somebody should run to one versus the other first. I try to say that people that are asking me, you have to look at what is a good culture and a good employer, regardless of if it's a dealer or an independent, right? So you can have poor experiences at both. You can have great experiences at both. I've had great experiences at both and poor experiences. So so you started out very green. You kind of go into the light line work and kind of stuff like that. How fast did you pick up on the idea that you had a knack for this and you really, really, really enjoyed it?
So when I was starting out, in Michigan, there's only a couple states in the U.S. that require it, but in Michigan in general, you have to have Michigan state certification in order to rent a vehicle. So once I was considered a technician, I had to go to Secretary of State. I had to get a training permit, which was good for 2 years. And at that point, you had all 8 of your certifications, or in your training permit, you had 8 certifications that you could work on those vehicles under a master technician.
Right.
But at that point, we had one at our dealership. So, within those 2 years, I pretty much try to get as much experience as I could to go and take those tests, because after that 2 years, it expires. You can't get another training permit. So I tried to do as much as I could, learn as much as I could. Everything was hands on. I actually went to school. I'm a 2-time college dropout.
Okay.
We'll put it that way. So I went to school to be an architect when I was fresh out of school in 2008. I did a year or a semester, realized I don't want to be an architect. So I ended up dropping out, came home, and then landed the dealership job. And then from there, I went to another college for automotive, and the hands-on portion was the guys that were in the class bringing their ship boxes into school to work on them.
Right.
And the teacher would just like oversee them to make sure that they weren't, messing anything up. There was like no hands-on training.
No set curriculum. No.
Yeah, there was nothing. So I was like, why am I paying for this?
Yeah.
So I ended up dropping out there too. And I went full-time at the dealership because I was leaving early to go to school and stuff. So I was like, this isn't for me. So at that point, I just researched as much as I could online. I spent as much time as I could under that technician that was training me. And then once I realized that, hey, I have, like you said, a knack for this, being able to diagnose things, take things apart, put it back together, is when I realized that, hey, I could make a career out of this. And I didn't even make it a full 2 years into my training permit before I went out on my own at that dealership and did my own thing. I was my own technician, got my own repair orders. And then from there, I just, got more experience with stuff. And, Ford offered obviously their online training courses and web-based courses, in-person stuff.
Yeah.
And, that's what I specialize in, obviously, the Ford product.
And so Michigan, and I've heard people compare it to, it's very similar to what I have up here in Canada with our apprenticeship program, right? Although in Canada, it's like 3 to 5 years it can take you. But you come away with a certification, you come away with like a recognized trade license, I guess is what you would call it. And, it's very much like your employer is very involved in that whole process. Like if you don't have an employer, you can't go. Well, you can go, but they don't just. It's what I'm trying to say is you have to be working at a shop to get sent on the training.
Gotcha.
If you're not working at a shop, you can't just sign up. It's not like going to college. So it's very much. And then when you come out, it's a recognized thing. You amass 6,000 hours. I think that's the number, 6,000 hours. So it takes like 3 years, 5 years for some guys, right, to get through, depending on how they break up the classroom and being able to get in, because traditionally there's always more people wanting to take the courses to go to the mandatory training than there is spots and available for classrooms. So some guys, it can take 5-6 years by the time, depending on if you can't afford, if your employer won't let you go, because you're either gone a complete day, 1 day a week, or you're gone for 10 weeks straight. If an employer won't let you go for that, you don't go to that intake, right?
Right. Yeah.
You're too busy. It's that kind of stuff. So it's good. And I think it's really helpful because you get the employers involved in what's actually being taught as part of the curriculum, right? Like there's constant feedback going back and forth saying, I want the guys to learn how to do alignments by the time they're, 2 years in. I want guys to learn the fundamentals of how to, evac and recharge an AC system, stuff like that, basics. And then again, the fundamentals of fuel, electrical, drivability, all that kind of stuff keeps petering in. There used to be, I can remember when I started, we were still doing 3-angle valve jobs on cylinder heads. Like we were, we did a week session on carburetors. Like we were still doing old tech when I was going through in early 2000s. So,
most of that stuff I've never even, I'm 35. So most of that stuff I've never even touched at all. And the downside with all that, Jeff, is the state certifications are so outdated that 90% of the stuff that on those tests aren't even on the road right now. And if they are, they're in somebody's garage sitting under some dust. So I remember when I was taking those tests, man, it was 2-3 times in a row I had to take the test just to pass it. And knowing that most of the stuff on that I was never going to see at the dealership level, but you had to pass it to get the certification.
And that's frustrating, because that's really hard to stay motivated on something. Because even I, like when they would talk about points in 2002, I'm like, shit, I couldn't even tell you the last car that had points. You know what I mean? Now, I understand it's important to learn because it's a fundamental thing. And smaller engines and stuff like that might still run an old style kind of, ignition system like that. But am I going to use it every day? No. Carburetor was the same thing, that kind of stuff. So I find that a lot of the times when some of the owners, and this is where it gets weird, is an owner at a particular shop that specializes in something could say, oh, I want them to really learn this. Well, crap. If that guy is a unicorn within his community or his input is that of, 1 out of 100, but he's got a big voice, they actually put it in the curriculum. And that to me makes no sense, because it's like we should all be able to look at it really, I think, from a very straightforward thing and go, that's a specialized skill now because of the time frame. It's you can only retain so much, and we're losing them the ability to take in key vital stuff that they're going to need every day because we put in this stuff in the curriculum that they're never going to see and they're never going to be exposed to. And even at that age level, would probably not be exposed to it. Now, are there young people that still touch a carburetor? Sure there are.
Oh, yeah.
But they become specialized at it now. It's not something that's like, oh, yeah, I took the class and I touched one and next year I'll touch it again. Like it's the old senior tech in the shop touches one, or they become specialized where it's like, I want to. There's a young girl on social media, and she's like actually a certified rebuilder for Edelbrock carburetors. I can't remember, her name escapes me right now, but she's like 19, 20 years old, and now she's going to go off to tech school and all that kind of stuff. But her dad got her into doing it because he was a carburetor nut too. So has she found an opportunity in a place? Yes. But I mean, she's forced herself to become very specialized, because if this all goes away tomorrow, is she going to walk into your dealership and start knocking it out of the park on, power strokes and, no,
Yep.
she's not. So,
Nope.
what did you struggle with in school? What was the subject that was like you found difficult?
As in like automotive, when I went to school for automotive? Oh man. I just for me in school, just in high school in general, I was great at math, PE, mechanical drawing, anything that was hands-on, I was great in. I barely even remember school when I was even there for that semester, if I'm gonna be completely honest. I always wanted to be the hands-on thing. Like I'm not a book guy.
Yeah.
So for me, once we kind of got like sort of through like for the first couple of weeks of the classes, and then the hands-on part in the afternoons was what it was. No, not very good. I was just checked out already. It was more or less, let me get through this semester. I don't care what happens at the end, and I'm gonna go back to work full time, and I'm not leaving work early to come to school.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say there was anything that was hard that I struggled with. It was more or less trying to stay focused and get as much out of it that I could before I was just out,
Yeah.
And my mom, when I went to school right out of high school, my mom didn't tell me till after I came home. She's like, I knew you weren't going to make it. Not in a bad way.
Yeah.
And she might not have said it in those words, but she knew that school and being away from home and that kind of thing wasn't for me, because that's just not who I am. I gotta have my hands on something and working with it and using my brain.
Yep.
The book work I just didn't like it. Just wasn't for what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no degree. I think the skilled trades is where it's at from now until forever. The skilled trades is where it's going to be to make money and to keep everybody moving and
100%.
keep cars on the road. You don't
going to become more vital.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's going to get harder and harder and harder to work on these vehicles as well. I mean, it's already harder. We're only in 2025.
When we look at what AI is already trickling down into, of what it can do. Like, if you think that AI can't replace, half the law clerks, can't replace half the real estate agents, can't replace, you're kidding yourself. It's most certainly can. It learns at such a rate. But the ability to put something in your hand and take two broken pieces and put them back together again, you can't teach AI to do that. AI can teach somebody the steps, but it can't physically go in there and do that. So the ability that people have to do it or not in the skilled trades, we're safe for a very long time if we keep our shit together. So when you got into dealer, what did you really like? Like, what's the kind of jobs that came in that you really enjoyed getting? Not from, say, a pay standpoint, but a young tech challenge standpoint.
This is gonna sound weird, but when I first started, I loved doing tires.
Okay.
I don't remember who's on your podcast last. I know you guys. I know you do a lot of tires out there in Canada, and I know you're not a fan of it. But when I was young and upcoming, man, I loved doing tires. I wanted to see every time it came in, how fast can I do these? How fast can I do this set?
Right.
I was getting them down to 36 minutes, mount balancing a set of 4. But I was 20, 21.
Yeah.
Tires came in. Hey, give it to Justin. He'll do them.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, I will. Roll them over here. I'll do them. So at that point, tires were really fun. I mean, like I said, it sounds weird, but it's an easy 1.2 hours. Plus, you got your alignment. You can have an hour and a half into it and get paid 3 hours. For mount balance and alignment.
Yeah.
But besides that, I mean, when I was younger, we had 2 other techs that were senior techs. So there was 2 senior techs and then me. So I was like third on the totem pole. And I didn't get any fun jobs that I can remember, I had to do all the BS work because I was the lowest guy essentially, so all electrical, the recalls, that kind of thing is what I was doing mostly for really the first couple of years of my career, which I'm very thankful for, because if I didn't have that so early in my career, I probably wouldn't know how to do it now, especially when you go mixed brands and looking at wiring diagrams.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I remember when I was working under my master tech, they had the old flip wiring diagrams. They didn't have anything on the computer at that time, so as everything was shipped to the dealer, you would flip through it. You would see like notes written out on every other page, and I'm looking through it, and I'm like, what in the hell am I looking at? Like, I don't know what this is.
Yep.
So trying to learn that set me for my career. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I was very lucky too, in the sense that when I was still hourly before they put me flat rate, because I was hourly and I was like only one of two that were, and I was a little bit ahead of the other guy. I got all the electrical and drivability comebacks from the shop, because I talked about it before. We ran 2 shifts, and I would start like 11 in the morning. I'd be there until 8 at night. So I was kind of in the middle. So stuff that didn't get done during the day shift, like 7 to 3, and the stuff that didn't get done from like 2 to 10, I was always running back and forth on those, cars that were trying to get done by 3, trying to get done by 5, or cars that left at 11 that came back at 8, and that tech had already gone home. I'd get that car, because it's like they didn't want to just throw everybody in a rental, get them out of there, get them on my face, leave it for tomorrow. They're trying to. So I looked at a lot of stuff. They hand me a DRB3, which was the Chrysler scan tool. Go here, go look at this. Or there was a lot of them back then that the recalls were starting to come out that you might actually have to use the DRB3 to do the recall, software update, something like that. And I can tell you that the TSBs then and the recall notices were very good about having the steps in them that told you exactly what to do. Push this button and that button and go to here. So I learned it really quick. And then all of a sudden it was like, with a little bit of background that I had prior to the dealer, I learned how to volt drop a circuit. I learned where to stick a test light to check to see if something was actually being turned on, all that kind of stuff. So I didn't, I did tires, but I didn't do like a ton of tires, because they'd hand me, a drivability problem. Go here, because that tech had already taken a stab at it and didn't, or can't duplicate the complaint. Right, not going to spend any time, and I would just be like, because I was straight time, I'd be like, I'll go drive it for an hour and see if it screws up. Like, why not? It was great for me. If I hadn't had that opportunity, I wouldn't be the tech that I am now. Not even close. Not even close.
Yeah, and I think that's I think that's the biggest downfall with flat rate is, if you want to learn. Granted, I was salary when I first started, so all this I'm on salary. But same thing, like you're saying, Jeff. If you have the opportunity to learn and be able to take as much time as needed to diagnose that vehicle, especially if it's an intermittent concern, that's where you're going to learn. You're going to learn by figuring it out. And the guys that are flat rate, like myself and dealership guys, if they can't duplicate a concern in 5, 10, 15 minutes, they move on to the next one. Time is money, and especially with cars being the way they are now, and everything is getting a module to control this button and that switch and that window, it's going to get harder. And, if flat rate doesn't change, we're going to have a lot of cars that aren't going to be fixed.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I think is always for me, is so many times when we see, because you see it, you got a huge platform online, and I mean, I'm trying to grow mine, but you see the people that don't understand the industry, and they just have so much hate for. A lot of it is the dealer technicians, right? Oh, I took my time 3 times and they couldn't fix it, blah, blah, blah. It's because so much they don't understand exactly how it works. You know what I mean? And I don't mean how technically the car doesn't work. I mean, like, they don't understand. Like, I tell everybody, and I can remember having a conversation for years, if they knew that we weren't getting paid unless we put a part on a car, so many people would would like come into a dealership and be like, how can you treat your people like that? You know, how can you expect that they're not going to find it if you're not paying them? But
Right.
everybody doesn't know. They think we show up and we sit on a big pile of cash in our toolbox, and like the tools are bought by this company, they're not ours, and these are all things that they think. If people knew that, if I drive around for 20 minutes and it's perfectly fine, I just gave away 20 minutes because I can't find anything. I can't get paid for anything, and then I'm not going to spend an hour, which you might have been told we're going to spend, because I'm not finding anything. It could be, if it doesn't rear its head in 20 minutes. It's probably not going to rear its head in an hour. It's probably going to take a particular set of circumstances to come together to make that intermittent no crank happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part that always drove me crazy. People that understand.
It's especially with for me anyway. I do a lot of warranty work, so Ford pays, whopping 3/10 for like a pinpoint test. It pays like 2/10 for hook up the scan tool. So right off the bat, you get like half an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, there are ways you can time things and get more time if it takes longer to diagnose a car. But, everybody's the same way. You only get so much time that the manufacturer is willing to pay out for any diagnosis.
Yeah.
And most of the cars that are coming in the dealership nowadays, they're all under warranty. And I don't know, some people just don't, like you're saying, don't understand how the process works. And so many of those customers are getting mad at the dealership because it has a Ford logo on the building. Like, we are directly in line working for Ford, which isn't true. We didn't build it, we didn't buy it, we didn't break it. We're just trying to fix it for you.
Yeah.
And then, we always get the bad rap of, you're saying, the dealer tech gets the bad rap because we can't fix their car. There's some stuff that are just out of our hands that we just can't control.
Mm-hmm.
Software, back ordered parts, wrong parts, the list goes on. You know how it is.
The parts is crazy lately, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I saw Ivan from Pine Hollow, he posted a video yesterday and today, two-parter, on the 2019 Rubicon Jeep Wrangler. Needs a camshaft. Shocking.
Yeah, shocker.
74,000 miles on it, so low mileage. Out of warranty, though. And cannot get a camshaft. And he said it was like on a waiting list of like 40,000 camshafts are back ordered. So these people are driving around in these things that are just like, it's grinding the lobes right off the cam. Like, these people are driving around in cars they have no choice.
Yeah.
Can't fix them because the part's not available. And that really angers me, because it's like, people, you're not responsible for that shortage, right? Even your own parts department is not responsible for that shortage. But people are driving around going, these effing dealers, just like, then that means that you, Justin, and everybody else must be all the same. They can't fix my car. Wouldn't you love to have the parts to be able to fix everything that you got sitting there waiting? Like, I know most guys would, because their hours would jump up. But everybody I know has got a truck or a car sitting waiting right now for an engine or transmission or a module. Every dealer tech I know has got at least one sitting waiting for a part.
Yep.
It's inexcusable. It's terrible. So.
Yep. Yeah, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, since COVID, it's been a trickle effect, and it's just getting worse and worse.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel bad for the people that, are driving around in something. It does not look good for the company either. The marquee brand, when they're driving around in a Jeep or a Ram that's sitting there ticking away.
Yep.
And nothing you can do about it. Everybody knows what's wrong with it. Everybody, would love to fix it. And hey, I just can't get a part. Like that. Why are they allowing that to happen? You can't tell me that they're sitting there going, well, that's good. The moral of Ivan's story is, she went into the dealership when he was done diagnosing. She traded it on a brand new Rubicon. So maybe that just shoots my whole theory right in the foot, because they succeeded in what their end goal is: sell her another vehicle.
Yeah, get another vehicle. Yep.
So I don't want to think that the OEs are doing that, because it made it out of warranty. It went 5 years. She bought another one of the same piece of junk. I shouldn't say that I drive one, but I drive an older one, so it doesn't happen. But you know what I mean? Like, do you think that's what's part of what they're really doing, Justin? Is they're trying to phase it out for planned obsolescence, or is it?
I mean, in my opinion, it seems that way. I mean, the farther I get into my career, it seems like vehicles are being made, for lack of better words, shittier.
Yeah.
The parts are not lasting like they used to. Look at the 10R80s and the Fords, and GM's having the same issues with theirs, and it's just TSB after TSB after TSB. It just keeps going and going and going and going. And we all know, all of us Ford guys that are doing these transmissions, we all know they're junk. But
Yeah.
Ford just won't be like, hey, put a new transmission in it. It's like, oh, do this procedure and make up this tool so you can command line pressure and monitor these PIDs. And it's just, we as a technician, we have to jump through so many hoops just to get paid. And we know the car's going to come back in 10,000 miles for the same issue. We're just putting Band-Aids on these vehicles, and there's nothing that we can do as a tech. Our hands are tied. We have to follow the TSBs and the SSMs, and and if we don't, we get chargebacks, and then that's our license, and that's us, as an employee of that dealership.
Well, that makes a good point, because I was going to ask you, how much time do you spend on the phone with the engineering telling you what to do next?
So the way it works for Ford is they actually publish the TSBs on PTS Oasis, and you literally click the TSB and it'll have like a 20-page, for 10R80s in this situation, it'll have like a 20-page list of stuff that you have to go through, and it'll have you check this and check this and check this. And then if you have to go into the transmission to replace the CDF drum, it has you do that, do the clutches, whatever else. Most of the time, by the time you get to that point of even doing that TSB, the whole transmission's fried.
Yeah.
And it's more than just that little part list. It's this part list. It really needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
So I don't do those 10R80s anymore. We actually have a transmission tech in our shop that does them. And now that I'm shop foreman, or I've been shop foreman since like last January of 24. So we'll have those come in, and the trans guy will be like, hey, this is what's going on with this thing. What do you think we should do? And I was like, one of two things. Either we do the TSB to where we have to get in there and inspect it.
Yeah.
Or we can just be like, hey, it has these concerns, which is with the TSB, along with these other concerns that are not part of the TSB. And we'll just make the whole thing as one, disregard the TSB, and we'll tear it down.
Yeah.
But it's all about, for Ford, how you story out your repair orders too.
Okay.
A story is your saving grace when it comes to Ford warranty. I mean, if you have a good story, it gets paid.
Yeah.
And luckily enough, a lot of our stuff that we are doing, at least to my knowledge, we haven't had any chargebacks for transmission overhauls or transmission replacements that should not have been done. And if there was, I'm sure I would know from management that that was happening. So
yeah, because the reason I kind of wanted to go into that particular topic is another person that I talk to all the time on TikTok, Mr. Mastertech. His first name escapes me. I don't know if you saw him or not.
Oh yeah, Dustin.
Dustin, that's it.
Yeah,
Dustin.
Yeah, I was talking to him earlier today and yesterday.
So wasn't that crazy, the whole thing that went on with him with that Cummins, and essentially being told on TechLine to go and put a set of lifters in it, or was it lifters and then a short block, and then finally a long block, and they determined that the lifter bores that the lifters go in or something was not machined correctly, and that was causing the noise. But that cost him essentially his job.
Yeah.
Because they didn't document it properly on his side. Like, for the people that listen to this that have never been through this kind of thing, and I got out of the dealership kind of side of things before that became prevalent. If anybody had ever tried to charge back me, I would have rolled my box the first time it ever would have happened. I don't believe you can do it. I don't believe it should be done. But they brought him in and terminated him because, like, they're not going to pay a claim because of something that wasn't documented properly, not on his side, but on their side.
Yeah, the manufacturer side. Yep.
And he loses his job. He fixed the truck. The truck left fixed. And he's not allowed to just like, I can remember when the first Nissan Titans were coming out, when the brand new 5.6, 5.7, 8.58 engine, whatever, the new V8. And they had all kinds of lower end knock. Pistons were machined like crap. Bears were machined like crap. They were sending whole long blocks. So it was never like we had to go in there and go, okay, let's maybe just put pistons in this. They were immediately like, let's take care of it and get an engine put in. This idea now that it's like they want to Band-Aid the crap that's already sold, I'm not on board with that. Now, I understand their point because, just because if you've got a noisy camshaft, we shouldn't be putting a long block in everything. But there is the argument that it's better for the customers long term if the less repair is done. Do you know what I mean? Like if we just put a part in it, it'd be like saying, now you have a starter problem, let's go put some contacts and brushes in it. Like, why? Why would we do that? But yet we treat that now with engines and transmissions because otherwise their claim list would be so high. Not that it already isn't now, it's in the billions of dollars, but it just, to me, is so stupid. To look after the customer properly, put a component in, put a complete unit in, walk away from it, make sure that it's done right and can last and stuff. But this Band-Aiding stuff is jamming camshafts in with engines that have like pumped all this metal through and transmissions that have burnt up how many, clutches and shoved so much material through. That's not smart to me.
No, and we got to have customer satisfaction too. I mean, which, talking about that on the same token, Ford has low time in service for their vehicles. So that's powertrain components. It used to be 12,000 miles for engine transmissions. Then it went to 3-year, 36,000 mile. And then it went to 5-year, 60,000, which would be covered your entire powertrain. And they've been doing a lot of jumping around. Now most of it is back down to 3-year, 36,000 for Ford. Lincoln is 6-year, 70,000 miles, I think. Theirs really hasn't changed at all, but same thing. If there is no published TSB or SSM for a repair, phasers, for instance, you need to find the root cause of what's causing the issue. If it becomes an internal component, either rotating assembly or the cylinder head has to come off, and it qualifies for low time in service, you put an engine assembly in it.
Right.
You don't go in, tear it down.
Yeah.
You have to have supporting documentations to cover you of why you're doing that repair. But same thing, customer satisfaction and less downtime, for the customer to have their vehicle in the shop. So, having to know that and having the best repair without having a chargeback, there's a lot of, it's a lot to go through as well,
And you mentioned the phasers, and yet how many times have they revised those now?
Dude, I've been doing phasers since the 2004 to 2008 5.4 3-valve that came out. I mean that's what 21 years of trucks, that those are going through. I mean, they've been obviously revised different engines, but you're talking, the 5.4, and then you have the 5-liter. Not so much, not often you get a 5-liter that has a cam phaser rattle, but still happens. But majority of them are the 3.5 EcoBoost in all generations.
Yep.
Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3.
Yeah. But they just kept changing it and revising it and how they built it and the machine tolerances and all that kind of stuff, and they still would do it. And it's pretty bad when the aftermarket has to come along with a lockout kit, to make the thing stop making noise. Like, that's not a well-engineered, well-designed engine, And we can make the argument, the same thing with multi-cylinder displacement systems on Ford and Dodge. Like, the aftermarket has come through and fixed that problem. But I can still remember being on a training course, and the guy says, the next time you're driving one of those and you watch it go from 8-cylinder mode into 4-cylinder mode, look at your injector on time. And he said, you'll see that it exactly doubles as soon as it goes. So he says, put your hand up if you think you're actually burning less fuel. Well, nobody's hand goes up. Like we can do basic math, 2 milliseconds going to 4 milliseconds, same amount of fuel if it's on, half the amount of cylinders. It's just it's ridiculous, and the customer is ultimately the one suffering. Like it's ridiculous because we're trying to build something that is trying to meet a cafe standard or carb or whatever, yet we're doing it at the expense of all of these manufacturers. Essentially, their history and their reliability and their legendary status, their reputation is what I'm trying to say, is all being sacrificed for these bullshit. Let's run 0W20, let's run 0W50. Like engines don't have a chance. It's crazy. It's crazy, crazy, crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say something earlier. We kind of flowing through the topics, but I was going to say something back to with Dustin with that engine. Getting on a topic with Techline, we do have, they call it TAC, which is the Technician Assistance Center. I think is what it's called, TAC. So you can write them, and they used to have an actual hotline center to when you would write in, they would get back with you pretty quick. Well, Ford has kind of dissolved that program, and now they're it goes directly to your field service engineer that's like in your general region. So they would take all of those hotline reports, and same thing though, you'd have conversations back and forth. They would help you, diagnose it. Half the time you would go through all the diagnoses that you could. You'd write everything black and white. Their first response was, have you done this? It's like, yeah, if you were to read what I said I did, it's in there. So the hotline thing, it's good and bad. But same thing, if they call you, it has to go in the paperwork. Like it has to go on the online report.
Right. Yeah.
Because when we store out our repair orders and hotline gets involved and they directed a repair, we put the hotline ID number in there in that story. That way, if Ford ever says, hey, why did you replace this? Or we're going to bounce this claim, or we're not paying, this little portion, we can go back. Well, hey, hotline per 66665 report says XYZ. They told us to do it.
Yeah.
And especially if it's warranty. I mean, if they're directing us to make a repair, that's on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way, I mean, the FSC is required to report any information, whether they talk to me, another technician, the service manager, whoever. It has to go in that report. So on Dustin's side of things, that's unfortunate that it never got updated properly. But it just sounds like his management was poor and wanted to have an excuse to, throw him under the bus to get him out of there.
Yeah, and he was just talking. It was either yesterday or today about how he had a guarantee, and he was not hitting, like he was at 35 consistently, and the guarantee was 40. So he's coming in under. So how a lot of owners and managers will look at that and go, "Oh, this guy's just an expense."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was an excuse to let him go.
And what are they going to replace him with? Somebody that's going to, like, how common are transmission guys? Not very common, right?
No.
Yeah. Not. Plus, that's not a transmission job. That's like doing a Cummins that he's not a Cummins expert, but he got the job done. That's a complete cab off. He'd had that cab off at least 3 times probably in that truck to do that job. So, I mean, good on him that, I'm excited to see where he's headed, is what I'm trying to say looking forward. And I think it's long overdue for him to step out of that, toxic culture and give it a shot for himself. And, we talk so many times in the changing industry and there's a lot of people that say that is not the best thing for this industry, is for everybody to get a certain level of aptitude and then go out on their own, because it starts the same cycle again. We water down the industry, and people, great technicians don't always make great business people. And then we have the situations of the learning curve of learning to be a good business person. What do you think about in your future? Will that be a thing? Like, is that a goal for you?
Well, with what I have going on right now, I know we were texting on TikTok earlier, and you said LOL, Bubba. So yeah, that I got the business, Bubba's Garage. So that's been like probably 5 or 6 year, probably 5 or 6 year thing in the making. About the time my son was born was about when I was like, I really would like to do this, but you know, the right time never presented itself. And then the older that I got, I was like, you know what, if I don't do this now, I'm probably never going to do it. So I just started it, got my LLC, got insurance, got all the paperwork, the bank accounts, vendors,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
Long term, yes, I would like to be working for myself. Now, I don't know if that's going to be general repair or if that might go into more accessories and performance. I would really like to get into like the performance side of things and do less general repair.
Right.
But long term, yeah, I don't see myself long term as a dealer tech.
Yeah.
I'd like to spend more time at home and waking up and walking, 100 feet to my barn and go to work for the day. I don't know. I'm at that point in my life where I'm just tired of having to go to work, for somebody else. Granted, I enjoy where I'm working, and I don't mean that in any disrespect to my employer, but I just want to be my own boss kind of thing where I can, come and go when I want, take the kids to lunch.
I've been good friends with Chris Enright for quite a while now, and I think really what he's done is a great blueprint for a lot of people, like just like yourself and everyone else. And I'm not trying to say that like you need to, if you're going to start your own thing, like undercut the dealer, like and specialize on Ford, or not even undercut, but like we know the guys online like Ford Tech, Malky Loco, and all those kind of guys have a big following and have been able to do very well for themselves by saying, I am a Ford master dealer trained technician. Here is my business of servicing Fords, and this is the way I do it and the way I feel it should be done. And Chris has done that with Honda. Now he'll tell you he works on a lot more now than Honda, but he would love to just work on Honda, because it's his wheelhouse. It's what he loves. He's very familiar with it. But I see so many guys, especially in the Ford side of things, do it well and be successful at it, that I'm just like, man, maybe I should have done that, 10 years ago, like just taken the whole thing and said, I'm going to be a Dodge tech and I'm going to be a Dodge tech for myself instead of being a Dodge tech for the dealership. Like, I think it's, especially with the domestic side of things, you can really work yourself into a good opportunity because, the training is top notch that you get. Nobody knows a car better, I say that, than the guy that has worked on a million of them.
Yeah, 100%.
How it should look, sound, smell, feel, act, all that. It better. It's just nature. You're going to. But it's a tough goal. It really is. So, because do you get challenged then after that? Yeah.
I mean, you got, especially if you're by yourself, it's you. That's it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you ain't got that buddy next to you that's, 2 bays away. Be like, hey, come look at this for me real quick. I need your opinion.
Sorry, I'm just going to mute my phone here.
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay. So so Bubba's Garage, what's the kind of, without being too nosy,
ask it. You're good.
How many hours a week does it take up, and what's your typical clientele and that kind of stuff?
So so the way I have it scheduled right now is I do appointments only. So if you were to call me one day and be like, hey, I'm trying to get my truck in for XYZ, I will tell the customer up front how the business works. I will tell them that I'm working at the dealer from point A to point B. I pretty much give them the whole rundown, and I just tell them like, hey, I work from 6 to 10, 6 to 11 p.m. at night after my day job. It might take me a day or two to look at your vehicle, get it diagnosed, get you a quote together, whatever it comes in for. And I have yet to have one person not be okay with that.
Okay.
So that's usually how that works. So I could have anywhere from 2 to 5 people a week. It's like this. It's a roller coaster. I mean, there'll be weeks that I have 2-3 weeks straight every single day of the week I'm working after I go to the dealership. And then there's weeks where I won't have anything for a week or two. Okay. It's kind of like a feast or famine kind of thing. Either the work's there or it's not.
Right.
But like right now, I had a 2011 Chevy 2500 HD that I just got rid of. Was today Sunday?
Yep.
On a couple days ago, Friday. Yeah, Friday or Saturday. I don't remember. Had that for a couple days, and then I have a 13 Edge that I had yesterday, and then I've got an 18 Jeep Compass that I'm working on. So I mean, I'm kind of just scheduling them in as I can. That's usually how it works. But I try to plan out. I try to plan out at least a week ahead of time. At least give myself a week ahead of time, just if anything goes wrong. So I only work out of a one bay barn. So I got a hoist in there and everything, but
Yeah.
it's only 24 by 32 square, space wise. So
Yep.
it's nothing big. But yeah, that's usually how I have it working out right now.
So do a lot of your customers come into you already kind of like with an estimate or a quote on what they need, and they're looking for you to be the better service option for them they're bringing you cars that they don't know what's wrong?
Yeah. They're bringing me cars that they don't know what's wrong with them. Most people that have come in have been like, "Hey, I have this problem. Can you look at it?" Yeah, and then I tell them the story. How I work, how I operate. They bring it in, they drop it off, and I diagnose it or whatever. I haven't had anybody call or come in that wants a better price from somebody else, or hey, I got quoted this. What do
Do
you
it for
think?
$100 cheaper.
Yeah. But I've had a couple that have come from other shops, parts cannon people that kind of just throw parts at a vehicle. That 2500 was one of them. But yeah, other than that, they're just general stuff that people have questions, or general stuff that people want diagnosis on. Yeah.
Now, what's your process when you get a car like that that's been parts cannoned? Because like you see me talking to groups, or you see if you hang out in the changing industry group a lot, or ASOG or any of that kind of stuff, and I don't know if you're in there or not. If you're not, you should be, because it's a pretty cool place to be. But
yeah, I need to be.
Yeah, because you see a lot of people when the car's been done somewhere else and it's been parts cannoned and it's still broke. You see people go one of two ways. They immediately up their price on their initial inspection to try and flesh out what has been done, because there's more places now that I have to look and investigate what part was put in and why was it done properly. And then there's the other train of thought, which is like, oh shit, I really want to help these people out, right? And I don't want to charge them. What I'm trying to say is they'll go donate a whole bunch of unbilled diag time trying to track down this needle in a haystack. What's your kind of take on that? Like, are you like me? You're completely heartless and don't have any.
No, absolutely not. I have a heart, and I'm a yes man. So my wife always tells me, she's like, you know what, you just need to say no.
Yeah.
I was like, well, it's easier to tell me to say no, but it's harder for me personally to be like, yeah, I can't. So prime example, I'll give the example of this 2500 HD that I worked on. This came from another shop, a local shop where I live, and the brake lights were constantly on. You turn the key on, brake lights are always on. It's like, all right, well, it's got to be a pretty simple fix. I mean, powers and ground, something's commanding it on, something short of the ground, short of power, however the system works, whatever. So the guy told me the whole story. He's like, yeah, the shop, they put a stop lamp switch in it, didn't fix it. Then they put a second one in it, didn't fix it. And then they put a body control module in it, and that didn't fix it. And he's like, then they wanted me to pay the money for all that work and parts and everything else. And he's like, the shop called me and was like, yeah, we don't know what's wrong with it. You need to come pick it up and take it somewhere else. I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, well, is the BCM still in the truck? What's in the truck that they've done, so when I get it, I know what to expect. Right. He's like, no, they told me they took the body control module out. He said they left the brake light switches, or the stop lamp switches in the truck. I was like, all right. So he brings the truck over, and I told him up front, I was like, well, I'm going to start you at 2 hours of diagnostics and testing right up front. And I explained to him, with other people being in it, I don't know if anything that they caused to make things worse. but that's where we need to start. And he was cool with it. He's like, okay, yeah, no problem. So he brings it over, and I'm gonna just cut to the chase. It was a stop lamp switch.
Right.
That was what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They put aftermarket stop lamp switches in it, and they were bad out of the box.
Yep.
Completely junk out of the box. So, I spent a lot of time getting to that point because
it seemed simple. Yeah.
Yeah. I took the word of him and the shop he had it at that they were known good parts.
Yeah.
Which anybody that's listening to this that is young and up and coming, don't always assume that new parts are good, because it burned me. I got to the issue with the culprit switch that caused the concern, but it was an hour or two of my time that I didn't check it first.
Yeah.
I was starting in the back of the truck. I worked my way from the back all the way to the front of the truck to the body control module, found that it had 12-volt output at all times, but it had no 12-volt input through the switch to the BCM. So I took the switches out. I bench tested them. They ohmed out 0.0 ohms, but they won't carry a load.
That's right.
So yeah. So I ordered a GM stop lamp switch. It came in the next day. I threw that in, and voila, fixed it. So, and it came in with a check engine light and an airbag light and all this other stuff. And the guy's like, yeah, none of that stuff was on when I dropped it off. So I'm fixing all of that stuff for him. But the good thing with that is I fixed that. I got an oil change out of it. I got rear calipers, rear pads, rear rotors on it. I did a full inspection on it. I had to put taillight harnesses in it because one of the bulbs was burnt out with corrosion in the taillight, the harnesses. So I got new harnesses for him. He's got a pinion seal leak and an axle seal leak. Sold everything but the two seals. He's like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to have you take care of that. But just that alone, I just got a customer. I got a customer of his wife, his parents. He took my business cards and he's like, man, I'm already talking about you to all my friends and my family members. So that's one of those where, when you want to say no and you don't, a good yes turned into a good customer.
Yeah, but what I like about that is you weren't scared to say, look, I'm going to need 2 hours to get this, right? And then 2 hours as part of it is like going, it can't be this simple. It's a switch.
Exactly. Right? That's what I went in with. Yeah.
Yeah. And yet there's so many times where I have to remind people that it's so hard oftentimes in the aftermarket to get things right, because at the dealer, they're 99% of the time they're installing a dealer only part. Customer, I can't fix it because I can't get a part. They will not stick their neck on the line. But why do so many shops, when they do a diag and it's not fixed, do they not look at the part and go, I need to try the better part that should have been in this in the first place? Like, I really believe that if we as an industry started doing that, half of these parts would go away because there'd be nobody to buy them.
Right.
Like, dealer techs are not, miles ahead in intelligence of the guys in the aftermarket, but we get a lot of cars fixed just because the parts that we're putting in are better quality. Yeah. It's crazy to me, and it's like, and so that guy that's putting in those cheap parts, his customers thinking they can't fix anything over there. Yeah. The reality is they can diagnose the car, the execution failed. Where they then screwed themselves is they didn't continue to go back and start over, right? Do the right thing, prove it out. They just kept chucking parts at it and then pulling the plug going, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, and the other thing that I don't understand is that the stop lamp switch from GM, it was $42. It was $42 for an OEM stop lamp switch. Yeah. The ones that were in them, that they were bad, they were $22 from the parts store. I mean, $20 more, you can get a GM OEM stop lamp switch, and you never would have been in the position that he was in.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I didn't talk to the customer about this, but in my head, I was like, if you would have just spent more time looking at the wiring schematic, finding out how the system operated, and probing the wires correctly, you would have known that there was no 12 volts. You got 12 volts from the BCM through the stop lamp switch. Without it pressed, it's a closed switch. It goes back through the switch and then 12 volts back to the BCM.
Yep.
If it sees 12 volts on the input side, the brake lights are not going to be on. So if they would have spent more time in looking at the schematic, like I said, they would have realized, okay, well, all I need is 12 volts there. This is how the system works. Am I getting it? Yes or no?
You can do a lot of that diag just with a scan tool.
Yeah, 100%.
You don't. I remember I had a Chevy Express van years ago. There was a 3500, a diesel, and it was an intermittent interlock wouldn't work. Shift interlock couldn't get it apart. And it was the same thing. The stop lamp switch, and I can remember the bulletin that I remember seeing said on 3500 HDs, if you use an aftermarket switch, you will have this problem. And I remember the shop I worked at, they put 2 of them in until finally I said, have you ordered? No, they keep sending over this. The dealer part was $12 less than the aftermarket junk that they'd put in. So what they ended up doing, Justin, was the customer, of course, because it's a dirty old, shunt truck that they use all over like dragging parcels around. He didn't care if the interlock worked or not. So they just took the interlock out of it. So you could pull it in the drive without even touching the brake. And I'm like, so that's what we do is we disable a safety system.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to put the proper part in. Like, come on. Like,
yep.
So
now anybody can grab that handle and just down in the drive, park it goes.
Yeah. So when that comes up for its commercial safety, which now does happen up here, and we fail it because the interlock doesn't work. And what if it's at another shop? Somebody's going to go through a whole rigmarole doing a diag on why is the interlock. And they're going to come in there and they're going to find parts missing, literally missing.
Yeah.
That makes the person that did that look really sketchy.
Yeah.
Like somebody told me a long time ago, always think about like when you're working for somewhere. And this is what I found been my frustration at some dealers is remember that wherever you work, if you do something, they immediately think everybody there is that level that you are.
100%.
Right? If that dealer couldn't fix it, every tech in that dealer is terrible.
Yep.
And that's what always frustrated me with trying to hold everybody to a higher level was the lowest level is always sets the bar, and it sucks. It's terrible. So what?
Yeah.
So what is there any kind of jobs that you won't touch?
Right now, I'm just not set up to do anything heavy. Non-Ford stuff.
Okay.
So if it's, I have done a transmission in a Silverado, just a, remove and replace. I have done that, which is no big deal. But if it comes down to like, tearing apart a non-Ford engine or transmission, something like that, I won't do it just because I don't have the resources and the special tooling and the time and the space to do that kind of thing. Down the road, I would love to, but it's not like a Ford where I could take a 2-liter EcoBoost or a 1.5 EcoBoost, have it ripped out in an hour and a half, get the engine torn apart, rebuild it. I don't have to think about that. It's just muscle memory at that point.
Yeah.
Whereas it's something else, I gotta look at service information and be like, okay, well, I need this part and this stacks on top of this and this goes here and that goes there. This is the torque spec. I know all that on the Ford end of things. So, but besides the heavy stuff, I'll do whatever. Suspension, steering, electrical. If it comes down to like modules that need to be replaced, I don't have the means to program or do a module swap. I can't do anything on that end of things, but I guess just basic stuff for right now. Yeah.
You'll touch the European cars. It doesn't bother you.
If they came to it, yes. We just don't have that many in my area. Where I live, it's just we have a lot of domestic where I'm at.
Yeah.
So Ford, GM, and Chrysler. I mean, I very rarely see Volkswagen, BMWs, Audis.
Okay.
At least in my demographic in Fowlerville where I live, it's like that. But if you go like towards, the dealership Fenton area.
Yeah.
There's high dollar stuff out there. So that's not the demographic I'm after. So
what about somebody called you up and they had a fleet of Sprinter or not Sprinters, Transits? What would you think about
that? They can't be. They'd have to be regular transit vans.
Yeah.
I need a bigger door at my shop because it's only 7 foot tall. I think.
Okay.
It's just a regular standard garage door that's on a barn. So I need to get a bigger door if that were the case. So yeah, I've been looking at getting a 36 by 40 built next to what I have right now, but it's
nice.
Ungodly expensive.
Yeah. It is.
It's more than I want to spend right now. So
yeah, I worked on a pile of transits at a former employer, and I didn't find them all that difficult. I just there was more. Transits are almost always a work vehicle, so there's almost always a rush on it to get it done. That was the biggest obstacle. Other than that, working on them, not hard at all. I didn't find them, if exhaust manifold you look at it, you go, well, that's a crappy job. But then you get in there and you're like, that ain't that bad.
Yes, the transits aren't. They're not bad when they're low mileage. But when you get into the higher mileage and the subframe bolts and the cradle bolts are eased up into the unibody.
Yeah.
I mean, one comes in on the wrecker, and you're just looking at it like, please do not come to me. I do not want that thing, just because it's probably going to be engine or transmission related issue.
Yeah, I did have a couple where I had to cut the subframe bolts out to drop the subframe down to get the cats out. Like that was stupid. And then, when you look at it, and you're like, well, you're doing essentially the same job if you do a tranny. Thinking that's so stupid. Like that's such a dumb design. I mean, it is what it is. They didn't design it thinking like that. They were going to have to take the tranny out that much, or they don't. Obviously, it's a Euro spec kind of vehicle, so they don't have the kind of corrosion that we have here. So,
right? And they've got all the new ones. They're all-wheel drive now. So think of all the stuff they have packed up into the front end of those things now. Just 10 times worse.
Yeah, they couldn't make a drive shaft for a two-wheel drive one where the shit.
yeah, with those couplers that would explode.
Oh,
yeah.
So I saw so many bulletins for drive shaft. It's like,
and there was like 2 or 3 supplements per. Well, they had the original, then they had a supplement 1, and then a supplement 2. Then a third one came out, I think, so where you replace the drive shaft half with a 4-bolt flange, and that was a never-ending recall. That'll keep you employed for sure.
Yeah. So going back to the kind of thing about not having the expertise and everything, has TikTok been very good for you in terms of being able to reach out and network with people for help?
For me personally, or for people to reach me?
Both.
Or both. I've had a ton of people that have reached out for, besides help, but like companies trying to get me to, promote their tool or, whatever. I'm not a big promoter on that because I don't want to feel like I have to be forced to use the tool to make a video for you as a promotion. Now, there are like the AutoFix D1 Lite. I love that thing. I would promote that thing every time I had a chance to do so. But besides that, I haven't personally reached out to, besides you. I mean, I don't know. How should I answer that? There are some creators like Check Engine Chuck and Brandon Sloan. I mean, those guys I have on, Snapchat and I text, have their phone numbers and whatnot. There are creators that I talk with and interact with, on the TikTok and Snapchat basis. But aside from networking with like other business owners, like in my area or reps, that kind of thing, nobody in my area.
Do you get a lot of requests for help from people that drive a Ford, but they're not a tech?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My inbox has, I couldn't even tell you how many people are in my inbox right now, but there is good and there is bad that comes from that. I've helped a ton of people from across the entire U.S. I mean, there's guys in California, New Mexico. There's a guy in Texas. There's actually a guy in Canada.
All right.
That I've helped. The only downside is people. I don't want people taking advantage of me.
Yes.
And I know this is for everybody that's a creator that puts content out there. People need to know that we have lives outside of TikTok.
Yeah.
And if we give you our phone number or our email or any source of contact information, don't abuse it.
Yeah.
So there has been a couple instances where there are people that have my number, and whenever they have a question, guess who they're texting or guess who they're calling.
Yeah.
And if they listen to this podcast, they're probably gonna hear me say it, but there's some instances where I know who's calling me. I just don't answer.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't want to help, but it's to the point where you've done it so many times, you're just abusing it to get your own mechanic from across the nation.
Yeah. And Brandon Sloan and Check Engine and Chuck and I had that kind of conversation several times. And I feel it's shifting a little bit because they're starting to think about, okay, if I'm going to be a tech line for you and you're not a tech, you're just a customer of what drives the platform that I'm very familiar with, and you want, hand holding through doing a repair or what might it need, they're going to start charging you for answers. You know what I mean? Yeah. As a consultation fee. And I'm all good with that. I think that's what we should be doing, because nothing makes me crazier than, I don't remember what it was, but Brandon posted a video and it had nothing to do with the moment about like what he was about fixing a car. It was something to do with the industry. And somebody immediately goes, I got a 2010 Chevy truck and should I flush the transmission? And I'm like, the ear shot off the side of my head. And, you know,
I've seen it. I've seen exactly what you're talking about. I've seen several videos that Brandon has made. Even Chuck, you go through the comments, whatever, and like the second or third comment from the top of the page is like asking about a car that he's not even on a conversation of the car.
I find it disrespectful, Justin, when they do that.
I just don't answer.
Yeah.
Like I won't reply.
I reply for them.
I see that. Yeah. I've seen you do that before.
Yeah. And because to me, it might not be good for my platform moving forward, but for me, it's just like, I very politely almost want to say, like, read the room. Like, we're not talking about what you're talking about. Go back and do a search through there. You'll probably find a very similar thing. That's where you could post it. We're talking about the state of the industry, and you want to know if you should flush your transmission fluid. Yeah. Like, I've never been good at being polite about that kind of thing, because it always just is like, it's immediate. You're so showing your hand right then and there that you don't care about what we're really discussing. You're just trying to save $10.
Yeah. You just want the answer now.
Chuck has helped me understand that sometimes they don't come across in a way that you realize how desperate they might be. Or maybe they're legit, like they're wanting to be someday where you are. They want to be a tech, and they're trying to tackle this thing. But timing and etiquette is everything, and it sends me in a spin. I've documented it well that I don't like the DIY thing, and me. I'm trying to understand it better because I was once one. We all were. But I feel like now, with the way some of them get on and immediately start to run down what you do or what I do or any guy in a dealership or a good shop does and say we're overcharging and we don't know this and we can't fix that, I don't want to help you.
Yeah, who does? Who wants to deal with that?
It's part of the process, I guess, though, putting yourself out there, right? Like there's a reason I don't show people how to fix cars. I think people think I'm dumb and I don't do diag. Like, I was talking to a guy and he's like, well, do you actually diag cars? I'm like, I diag a lot of cars, like, and I have some pretty complicated stuff, but I'm never going to put it up there and show it to people because everybody's going to get on there with a different method. And I've even done it to Chuck. I've said, here's how I would have done that. And then, I would have grabbed this tool instead and gone that way. And that probably wasn't right to do. But Chuck lets it slide because he's like another tech to another tech. These people that are completely unvetted, I'm not interested if somebody says to me, oh, a continuity check would have showed that. Dude, you just showed your hand. Like, you just showed that you don't know at all what you're talking about. And, like Chuck's load cage. People still say you don't need that tool. Continuity check is everything.
I think it's great. I think it's a great tool.
Good for him. I'm so proud that he's like it's doing so good for him. It really is. I'm just ecstatic.
Everybody should have one of those.
At least, yeah. Ryan Mullen. Ryan Mullen video too.
Yeah.
So what a cool guy he is too. Like, I mean,
Ryan. Oh, I can't wait to meet him. You're going to ASTA, aren't you?
Are you?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, I signed up yesterday. Yeah, I booked everything yesterday, so I got my flight's booked and the room and ticket. Now I'm only going to be there Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
Not going Thursday. So yeah, I'm pumped. So
well,
all those guys.
We're definitely going to sit down and do more of the recordings like we did last year, where we had Mr. Subaru and Chuck and Brandon and myself all in the room. We might have to do several parts because I'm not sure how many mics I can get going at one time. Okay. In a perfect world, I'd love to sit down with like 12.
That'd be sweet. That would be cool. Yeah.
And just let it go. Like put a case of beer on the table and go, okay, start talking about like what brought you here and what drives you nuts. But I think that's so cool because like my goal always was to get people that had an online platform to be able to come together, get to know one to get another in a more intimate, more personal, cameras off level, and then see how, like, you work in a dealer, I work in an independent, this guy's a mobile guy. Like, we're all so much closer to each other than we realize. It's crazy, and what burns our gears and what like motivates us and all of that kind of stuff. We're so close. We're so much alike. It's not even funny. And it's just, I think the only way we get this industry improved and changing is we come together and say like, yeah, this was what drove all of us nuts. And we don't want to see it happen again. I think, yeah.
What? Can you hear anything in the background, Jeff? Can you hear a tablet? No, nothing. No, you can't hear it. Oh, apparently my daughter, I can't hear it, but I guess she's up the stairs, or whatever, on her tablet.
Okay.
My wife wanted to make sure that.
No, we didn't pick it up at all.
No, I didn't. I couldn't hear it either. So.
Well, that's awesome. So what courses are you going to take at ASTA?
I don't know yet. I haven't gotten my email confirmation yet.
Okay.
I got a little overwhelmed with so many classes that were. Once I get the email, I really need to sit down and decide.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to go through. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll probably take a business class, since they're split off 2 classes per day for Friday, Saturday. I think what I'm going to do is I'll do like a business, whether it be owner or advisor or whatever.
Yeah.
I'll do that on probably the morning, and then I'll do a tech class in the afternoon.
Yeah. Rick White or Cecil Bullard, either guy, if you see those two names, those are the top trainers in the business side of this industry right now, by far. Like, they will help you. They'll help you understand your numbers at a level you never understood. It's crazy.
Perfect.
I take their classes, and I'm not even an owner because I want to understand it more. It's helped me greatly. So,
yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, the technical stuff. Trying to think of what I know is being taught right now. Matt Fonslow, former guest, is going to be teaching a case studies class with it's still to be undecided. He'll have a partner in the classroom with him, another technician that is sharing back and forth. My friend Brian Pollock will be doing his class on shit you don't know and how to read the effing manual.
I saw his name pop up there.
Brian's the unicorn in the industry. We call him that in several chat groups. That's his name that pops up as unicorn, because I've known Brian 15 years and I've never seen him stumped on a car yet. And it doesn't matter what nameplate's on the front of it. He is the most well-rounded, best technician I've ever seen. And like, he can do an Equinox timing chain job in like an hour and a half, or he can take the most complicated CAN system, diagnose it, break it down, find the problem in like 2 hours. He's a unicorn. He's brilliant. He's brilliant at all facets of this. He's
good at process of elimination, eh?
Oh, he's just read the effing manual. That's his motto, right? The answer is there. You just have to go find it. So he's amazing. I'm so blessed to have known him so this long and be able to call him a friend. He's just like, if I am stumped on something, He's the first person I ask. And like I could tell you, I've probably reached out to him like 50 times in my career. Like, I got a car that's doing this. He's reached out to me once.
Yeah.
And he already knew what the answer was. It just slipped his mind for a minute. He wasn't thinking about it. Because it was an older Chrysler. So yeah. But just brilliant. There's so many. Brandon Steckler will be there. Matt Fonzel. Like, there's so many guys coming now from TikTok. Like, Chuck, we have to thank Chuck for that, because like, and I kind of I backed him into a corner last year and kind of dared him to go, and it changed. And so now he's like become such an advocate for this event and people going. It's crazy who's going to be there.
Yeah, like, which I think is important, especially for somebody like Chuck that has a large following like he does, and he's just the way he makes his videos is what drew me in when I first got on the TikTok. It was Check Engine Chuck and Diesel Tech Chris. Those are the two guys that kind of help promote me to make my TikTok and to do videos. I actually made a video and I tagged him in it way back when I started. But there's so many people that can relate to Chuck, and his videos they just draw you in. Like, you can't just scroll past them. Like, you just can't. They're just there, and you got to watch them.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that he's using his platform the way that he is to get a lot more guys to ASTA. And I had no idea what AST was. I didn't know what Vision was. I didn't know what Tools was. I didn't even know it was even a thing until I got on TikTok.
I know.
So I mean, I didn't know there was training outside of manufacturer training and that's in college.
And I was just going to say that, right? Like, you are going to be one of a handful of guys that have actually work at a dealer that are going to be at this event. Like, that's almost unheard of. You don't see a dealer guy walking around at these events. If you do, he's paying out of his own pocket, because dealers don't send them, because they don't see any reason to do any training that the OE doesn't lay down as being mandatory. They're doing it for their own investment and their own selves. I think that's so cool. So hats off to you. Chris Craig is going to be speaking at this event.
Yes, I actually saw that Saturday. I think he's Saturday afternoon, I think.
It's going to be cool to meet him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have his book?
I don't, not yet. No.
I got on the wait list, and I'll be honest, I haven't read the whole thing yet. I've read probably 100 pages of it.
Right.
I've been busy with stuff, and I just haven't had time. I haven't set aside time to actually sit down and read a couple pages a night. But
when he listens to this, I'm going to hope that he can bring some copies, and I'll definitely buy a copy. But I haven't, I haven't put myself. I met Ivan at Tools along with Check Engine Chuck. I think got a chance to meet him, which is pretty cool. Like 3 weeks ago, I'd met Ivan before he came to ASA. There's talk he might make it down. Scanner Danner might make it. I'm going to try and get Eric O from South Maine to come. This will be all some pretty cool stuff. We could get those kind of guys that are so big. There's so many names that I know are coming that are slipping my mind right now too. And I think that's just awesome. I think it's wicked that these guys are going to come to this event, because from the event standpoint, everybody talks about vision, but ASTA just has a different feel. And I think that's what I'm trying to share with everybody. And Chuck came away completely getting it. It's got a different feel. Like, you get as good a quality of training, but the networking is just on a whole other level there. It's the way everybody just is. It's just perfect. I can't say it enough. It changed my life the first time I went, and it's home for me now. I'll never not go. So, yeah.
Yeah. One of my good friends, I was the best man at his wedding. He's a couple years younger than I am. I think he's 29. I think he's going to be 30.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta give kisses. Good night.
Okay.
Good night. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow.
That's awesome.
My daughter's going night. She's 3.5.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was saying, one of my good friends I used to work with, he actually was my apprentice for a little while until he got injured and kind of like went into like motorcycles and stuff like but he still wrenches. And I brought it up to him last night, and I said, hey, what do you think about going to this event? So I sent him the link, whatever, told him what it was. He's like, yeah. He's like, let's go. I thought he was kidding, but I bought him a plane ticket. We're gonna split the hotel room, and bought his ticket for ASTA. So yeah, I'm taking a buddy with me, and we're gonna come down together.
Well,
so it'll be cool.
That makes me even happier to be able to shake your hand in person and meet you guys, because I think that's just, I can't thank everybody enough for seeing the value of that event and these type of events. Because I mean, it's one thing to say to take training, but the networking is where you go to the next level. Like, a lot of us are at a level where we get something out of the training, sure, but if you can't implement it on the car the next day, next week, next month, it's really hard to retain some of it. We go back to our processes and we get the car fixed, and that's all good.
Yep.
But the networking is where you come away with that confidence to be able to say, I'm worth this, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to say no to this. That's where the real beauty of these events it comes from. It's incredible. And I want to thank you for, signing up for it. I want to thank you for coming on here tonight. I genuinely really enjoy speaking with you on TikTok. And I know it's, there's so many people now. It gets so busy and hard to keep track of everybody that's going on.
I know.
I mean, when I saw you starting to put together your home shop there, I was like, good. That's what I want to see is people that, are still a very good positive outlook and a positive advocate for where they work, their place of employment. But at the same time is like got that hustle that it's like, I'm playing long ball here and I'm getting into, what is going to set me up for later on. And hats off to you, man. I want to thank you for that. So
yeah, that's a long term. Like I said, it's a long term goal. Definitely is not. I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy to go work 10, 11 hours a day, come home and see the kids for an hour or two before they go to bed.
Yeah,
and then you're in the barn for 4 hours. There's times where I'm down there till 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
I come up, go to bed, go back to work for another 10, 11 hours and just repeat the process,
But you've got the talent and the hustle to do it. You will be a success, I have no doubt. So I'll let you go, and you can go say goodnight to your daughter and all that kind of stuff and enjoy the family, because it's Sunday night, and I appreciate you getting on here with me tonight. So
yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having me. It's, I don't know. It's just kind of surreal to me. I never even thought I would be in the position to be on a podcast and do what we're doing. So it's cool. Super cool.
This is how we change the industry, is just having these conversations. Just more people. It resonates with so many more people than we'll ever meet, and that's what I learned, and that's why we share it. So I want to thank you. I'm excited now to see you at ASTA. That's going to be awesome.
Yep. I'll see you on TikTok, and then a couple months. Like you said, I'll shake your hand in person, and
I'm going to get a beard trim, and I'm going to have a lot more sun on me. So I'll have a pretty good tan by then. So
perfect.
Awesome, Justin. Thank you very much, man. We'll talk to you soon, everybody.
Right,
thank you for tuning in tonight. Love yous all. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks, Jeff.